Adrena, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Hey, this is Bay Bright, the bad boy indie soul, Bright Vision Entertainment CEO, and you're chilling, listening to iLive Radio. Keep it locked. Keep it locked. Keep it.
This is Cheryl Brooks, and you're listening to iLive Radio, supporting independent artists and their music.
Hello, I am Erica, and you're listening to iLive Radio with some of the best independent artists from around the world.
What up, it's your girl Shanaz, and you're listening to some of the best independent soul music from around the world with iLive Radio.
Hey, this is DJ Jarzino. Come and join me each and every Thursday on the Love Freeness Radio Show between 4 and 6 p.m. EST, 9 and 11 GMT. Be sure to tune in, spread the word, and share the link right here each and every Thursday on iLive Radio.
Ready for Rapsalute? We're the #1 hip-hop show in the T-Dot, airing every Monday from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. on iLiveRadio.com with your host Amber, alongside DJ Shortcut, Chino, Dean, and Caesar Swift on the ones and twos, representing the culture, the lifestyle, the music, and the DJs.
You're listening to iLive Radio. www.iliveradio.com.
Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the rock were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sang and sings on. There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African, the Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher, they all hear the speaking of the tree. They hear the first and last of every tree speak to humankind today. Come to me, here beside the river. Plant yourself beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed-on traveler, has been paid for. You who gave me my first name, you Pawnee, Apache, Seneca, you Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold.
What's up, everybody? This is iLive Radio, International Times. I'm Michael J. Brown. Welcome into 2020. So glad to have you with me. We got a special guest coming in at 9 o'clock as well. Us. We're gonna kick things off with classic Stepping Tiger LP Jakomitsu. we're gonna ease those New Year's Eve hangovers. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to the sweet, sweet Agnes. 2020 here on International Times. Classic on Paper Records here. Who remembers those after parties in the mid-90s? Definitely on point. yeah, you know where we're going here. to tell you which Saturday night? Got to be done. Anyway. Saturday night, so you know we got to take a little deep, right? Special guest has arrived. You're listening to the sounds of Rajan Time. Reissue. She's coming out with another 12 in February. Classic reissue coming up. We got ODJ in the house. Another 10 minutes here. We're going to move on into some different sounds. Taking into 2020, making sure you're feeling good. We got those who know this one, and those who don't, welcome. Frankie to Spencer. What's up, Spencer, out in Chicago, wherever you are. Saturday. We got a minute left here before we take a little commercial break. Thanks for tuning in. This is International Times radio show. I'm Michael J. Brown. We got Mr. ODJ coming up next. Stay tuned.
This is Felicia Temple, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Hi, I'm urban Christian artist Kayla James, and you're listening to iLive Radio. iLive Radio. iLive Radio. iLive Radio.
This is Atina, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Hey, this is your boy Easeman. You're listening to iLive Radio, supporting independent artists from around the world.
Ready for Rapsalute? We're the #1 hip-hop show in the T-Dot, airing every Monday from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. on iLiveRadio.com with your host Amber, alongside DJ Shortcut, Chino, Dean, and Caesar Swift on the ones and twos, representing the culture, the lifestyle, the music, and the DJs.
Hey, peace and blessings. This is Lucia D inviting you to join me each and every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. for Honey Drop here on iLive Radio. Journey with me each week as I spin the latest international sounds in new soul, R&B, hip-hop, and a little taste of everything in between. Every show features independent producers from across the globe in the beats beneath, and the 10 sweetest vibes of the week smooth out the night in the 10 Drop. Honey Drop, each and every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, here on iLive Radio, serving up audible treats like honey, always with a heavy beat drop.
Are you ready for Rapsalute? We're the #1 hip-hop show in the T-Dot, airing every Monday from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. on iLiveRadio.com with your host Amber, alongside DJ Shortcut, Chino, Dean, and Caesar Swift on the ones and twos, representing the culture, the lifestyle, the music, and the DJs.
Music back to back to back on iLive Radio.
welcome back to hour number 2 of International Times. Lovely to have you guys with me. How's everybody doing on this Saturday night? Everybody's kicking back, feeling all right after their New Year's celebrations. So we thought we'd do something special tonight, and you on mic number 2 there? Yeah. I got Toronto veteran by UK DJ OJD with me. ODJ. Let's get it right. I'm feeling under the weather tonight, people. I'll admit that. We got Mr. ODJ in the house. How you doing, my man?
I'm very good, very good. Thank you for having me down here, Michael.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, and slide this down a little bit here. Absolute pleasure to have you on my show, and you know, I've been doing this show on iLive for I think since about last May, and I had a friend that was doing a little show on here, Sarah, and she does her show, and she yeah, and then I realized you were part of the station as well, which I was happy to hear, because I used to tune in when you were down at 89.5 doing your amalgamations in sound.
Yeah.
Now, and you were doing that on 89.5 for how many years was that?
Jeez. When I start reflecting and looking back. A little while I was there. Over 6 years I was there.
Yeah. And it was one of those shows I remember, like I hadn't heard of it, and I was at home, you know, working late, came home, clicked on the radio, and all I remember hearing was tune in, turn on.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and then it was just some nice, I mean, you go across the board with stuff, but it was at that night I remember it was some nice deep disco, and I mean you were playing some house, and I mean you know, and you're showing iLive right now, I mean you go across the board, you play soul, jazz, so you know, given the kind of sounds you play like that, I mean your history growing up, I mean you're from central London, right?
East London.
Yeah. East London.
Yeah, born in East London, used to live a little bit in South London and lived in North London. West London is the only place I've never actually lived in. Okay. I know it well, but I just never lived in West London.
Yeah.
So East London primarily.
Okay. And so, I mean, you know, that's just obviously those who know living in anywhere around those parts, I mean, you're going to get spoiled. I mean, there's just so much music coming out of the UK, and I mean, that's part of the reason I wanted to move over there in 2000. And you know, what were you as a kid growing up around a lot of the sound system culture? I mean, you probably went to Notting Hill Carnival.
Yeah. Actually, my sister took me to Notting Hill Carnival when I was quite small, and that was my first introduction. And it was just like masses, you know. At that time, I wasn't really used to seeing masses of people, but there was just masses of people all around me. Obviously, I was holding my sister's hand. I didn't want to get lost in the crowd.
So you were just a wee lad.
Yeah, I can't even remember how old I was, but I was, you know, younger than my sister, a lot younger than my sister. And I, even in the household, as you mentioned, you know, music was just all over the place in London. And back in the 80s, I think really things really started to develop for me, because back in the 80s, hearing our music, there wasn't really a lot of platforms, a lot of radio stations and a lot of TV stations and a lot of clubs back in the 80s that was catering for the music that myself and a lot of other people living in England at that time. So born out of, I guess, being a young person and frustrated that I wasn't able to hear the music I was into, and the rest of the people who were back there at that time, young frustrated people, couldn't hear what we were really into. Out of all that frustration, came, as you might know, the pirate radio scene, which really took off in the early 80s, mid 80s, and it was a time when myself and thousands of other people living in the UK now had this platform where they can hear music, our music that we were into, on the radio. So it was a great time, and there was many over half a dozen pirate radio stations back in the 80s that catered to underground music.
Fantastic. Yes. I mean, I've definitely heard that. I don't know if you had you seen that there was a documentary I just saw, BBC. It was on. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube, but they do a short. It's about I think it's about half hour, 40 minutes, but it's talking about the pirate radios.
I've seen it. Yes. I saw it.
I mean, it was just exciting, very exciting to see that people were just pulling the wool over the Big Brother's eyes, I guess you could say, just like trying to keep these things running around town.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, there was just so much creativity that was coming out of that. So I mean, that's pretty special that you were there. And did you get to? Did you find yourself locked up in any tower blocks, padded tower block rooms?
No. You know what? It's a funny thing because we're all DJs, and I always say this on my show. We are all DJs, and we all have a start somewhere. And my start primarily wasn't DJing, if you can think of it like that, but it was more hearing music at home, enjoying the music at home. And then as I got a little bit older and I started going out to parties and clubs, I wasn't DJing at this time. My relationship was, I was a club goer, I was a party goer, I listened to radio, I did the same thing that thousands of other people in the UK, in London, were doing at that time, which was, when you hear music on the radio, what we used to do is we used to make tapes. We used to record our particular shows, particular DJs that we were into, and I've got loads of tapes from the mid 80s of
still got them?
I still got them in a box.
Oh no!
Loads of tapes of different DJs on different pirate radio stations. So amazing. I was like the others, really blessed to have this avenue to hear all these types of music, whether it be disco, funk, soul, reggae, jazz funk, jazz fusion. It was all there for us to enjoy. And for those of us who, like I said, they had it on tapes, I could give my tapes to friends, they would give their tapes to me, and the music just got circulated like that. So it was really a really great time to be back in the UK in the 80s.
Yes, indeed. And so so through that and the mixtapes, and did you have any particular DJs that really stood out for you? I mean, was there any? I mean, I know there's probably a lot of influences through the sounds, but was there any kind of who am I thinking of? Colin Dale?
Colin Dale, yeah. I mean, there's so many. There's Colin Dale, Trevor SF. There's Norman J, Daddy Bug, Vinyl, Jasper the Vinyl Junkie. Oh,
was Daddy Bug? Is he part of the Wild Bunch?
I'm not sure. Okay. Daddy Bug used to be on Kiss FM, a pirate radio station called Kiss FM. Trevor Nelson, who used to be in a sound system called. He actually was from East London, from Hackney. He used to be in a sound system called Mad Hatters. So.
And he was what? He was known as the step up of the Rare Groove.
He was one of the many people, because there was a lot of people in the mid 80s. Rare Groove really hit its I wouldn't say its peak, but it really hit a core with a lot of young people in the UK, in London, I should say, London, England. And Trevor Nelson and Norman J had a thing called Shaking Finger Pop, which him and Judge Jules used to do. And they really, him and a lot of other DJs really kind of put Rare Groove on the map so to speak. So there's quite a lot of people that was getting into that kind of soul, disco, funk, and, you know, trying to elevate it and get it more recognition. So there's quite a lot of DJs. It was never really a one DJ thing. It was a combination of so many different people. So I wouldn't really say I had one favorite person. I had lots of favorite DJs.
For sure. And I mean, I guess with the rare groove scene, I mean, back in those days in the 80s, it was properly legal parties, right? I heard there was a lot of you know, people would go there and, you know, they'd be dancing their ass off because they knew, you know, maybe if they had an hour or two, the cops might be there, right?
Yeah. And again, as I was saying before, a lot of the parties that were around in the 80s, they were all sparked off by, as I said, the young people back then in the 80s, myself included, was just frustrated that we were kind of shut out and kept out of whatever the mainstream was doing, the mainstream radio stations were doing, and whatever the clubs up the West End were doing. We were kind of excluded from that. And out of that exclusion and that frustration, we decided to do our own thing. Hence, we ran our own pirate radio stations. We had our own little parties here and there, which then expanded and exploded into, you had people doing warehouse parties and they got big, and you had people doing raves, and it was all done by people who were frustrated because our needs wasn't being met by the establishment. The powers that be was not meeting our needs, so we took it upon ourselves. Okay, we have to meet our needs ourselves. We have to do our own thing. So that spawned the whole movement of disenfranchised young people all over London, different parts of London. You know, people didn't really know each other. Wherever they were in London, they just decided, right, I can't get into a particular club in the West End. Okay, I'm going to have my own party. I'm going to go around to my friend's flat. And usually these places were like what we would call apartments here. 1 bedroom. You got somebody that's got equipment. They put the equipment together, call their friends or get some word out on the street. Hey, I'm having a party. Quite simple. And things just grew from that. People just doing their own thing, basically.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like a definitely an exciting time. I mean, for me, you know, getting into, you know, maybe walking into my first Toronto rave in '92, around there. I mean, there was a few English folk over that was doing some events, and I mean, it just
yeah, you had Psychosis and Chemistry.
Yes, it was Alex who was doing Chemistry, and exactly, Psychosis was going on, Exodus. I mean, there was a few different groups, and it was. You know, it was fantastic. It was definitely it was through that birth of what you're explaining, you know, which happened there, and you know, a lot of people here decided not to do it anymore because, you know, when they started out doing it, it was about a group of people getting together, being really creative, and wanting to do something special. And then obviously, you know, various things came into play.
Well, speaking about that, it kind of disintegrated slightly. It went off a little bit once the drug element entered into the big warehouse parties and raves. Same thing in the UK. Once the element of drugs was introduced, that was the downslide. Because obviously the establishment, in some cases in the UK, unfortunately people died as a result of taking certain drugs, and the establishment was not going to have any of that. Rightly so, because when you lose a life, any life is precious. And if you lose a life through the taking of drugs, and drugs are being taken in a specific place, we all know the establishment's not going to stand for that. No. So they shut the raves down, and that was the end of certain raves. Likewise, in Toronto, unfortunately, I don't really know of anybody actually dying, but the mere fact that once you introduce drugs into any environment, then there's a higher chance that a fatality could happen.
Yeah, and if you're using a warehouse space that's, you know, not safety controlled and whatnot.
Yes.
I mean, you know, drug use has been going on for, as we know, a long time.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing about the raves, and the establishment, as you said, they were just waiting for something. So when those things came up in the news in the UK about people dying, taking ecstasy, whatever, it was like their way to say, okay, that's it, fist down, right? Yeah. And they're never gonna. They wanted to make sure that was never gonna happen again, right? Yeah. And as you see where we're at right now, where scenes have gone, but you know what? We're here doing our thing, and it's. I just want. What about? The other side of London as well is the, for me, the bass culture and heading to some Josh Shaka, Bashanti. I mean, there was just some heavy
the reggae
sound systems. Yeah. And it was. Yeah, I mean, it was just.
It was, as I said, I used to go and listen to Shaka. I used to live about 3 minutes away from where Shaka used to play in this particular club called, not Cubies. It was, the name escapes me. But I used to live about 3 minutes away. And the moment I knew, because reggae was another music format that most people in the UK, in London, was heavily into. Most people from the Caribbean community, West Indian community, reggae and soul was two of the mainstay musics that I was into in the UK when I lived there in the 80s. And I used to live about 3 minutes away from this club where Shaka used to play. So obviously, once I heard that was it. Every single Friday, I'd be down there. And it's when I look back, it's kind of interesting how I used to take music in. Every single Friday, I'd be in that club hearing Shaka throw down some of the heaviest dubs. And his sound system was like seriously booming.
Yeah. It was like a stack of 5 speakers on either side of you. And if you weren't ready, you better get out of the way.
I know people who go and hear Shaka one time, and because they can't handle the sheer power of that system, they say they can't go and hear Shaka.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because the system was incredibly booming. He had that system tweaked such a way that when he played a record, the bass line was like, rip your chest. It's like ripping in your chest. And some people just can't handle that. And Shaka was just one of the many sound systems in the UK. And Shaka's been going since the 70s. And my time on the scene, if I can put it that way, came in the 80s. So he'd already been doing what he's doing for 10 years. And the whole sound system scene, as you mentioned with the basement thing, it all evolved from the sound systems that was happening in Jamaica. That's where that whole concept comes from. And Shaka is Jamaican. I've actually met him. I've interviewed him. He's a very nice, humble Rasta man.
Ooh. You got a recording of that? I'd like to hear that.
I don't know where I'm going to find that, but I know I have a recording somewhere of me interviewing him, and he's incredibly humble man. He's into his reggae music, and when I was speaking to him, he's actually telling me it's not just reggae he's into, which that blew me away about him, because I was under the impression, no, he's a Rasta man, he's only interested in reggae music. But Shaka told me he's into drum and bass. When he told me that, I was like, drum and bass? A Rasta man listening to drum and bass? I can't see it, but that's what he told me, and if he's telling me, I believed him. So the whole basement thing, bashment, sound system thing, it all spawned from, as we say, it came from the Caribbean, by the Caribbean people. They brought it to the UK, they did their thing. Again, they were doing something that they loved to do, that their needs of hearing music wasn't being filled.
Yes.
So they did it themselves. Like many other sound systems, you had Fat Man, you had Coxsone, you had Jatubbies, you had Moambasa. I'm just trying to reel off all the sound systems I've heard. You had Heavyweight, you had Celoid, you had Frontline, Young Lion. So many sound systems, and they were all spread out in all four points in London, north, south, east, and west. You will find at least, and I'm going to say this figure because I know there's more, at least 5 sound systems in all 4 parts of London. And there's probably more.
Yeah.
So that just gives you a scope of, from a music perspective, all these different people living in all these different parts of London, and they're all doing their own thing, and they're all providing the people with music. And then, as I said earlier on, once pirate radio got up and running, you had a slew of people from our community on the pirate radio stations playing everything from reggae, jazz, funk. House music eventually came in the later stages of the 80s, which is about, I'd say, 86, 87. House music started to really come in. 88, it was really in there and it was thriving. Techno, soul music and reggae music was still always there.
And was that around the time Fabio and Groove Rider, mid-80s, they started Rage, was that? Like they were playing house then, and then moved into...
Yes. The evolution of music for the UK was... House music really started to really develop and take a hold of the UK in the latter stages of the 80s. I would say like 80s, 86, 87, 88, 89. House music was really, really rocking. And everybody was, even the soul guys.
Somewhere Love, right?
Yeah, everybody was just rocking. And then come the 90s, then you see you had this change in the UK whereby the very people in the UK or into this music started dabbling and making music themselves, which spawned a next musical evolution, if I can say, which is garage music, UK garage. And that was primarily done by people living in the UK, going in their studios, getting all this music, house music that they were into, soul music, funk music, putting it all together, meshing it together, and then coming out with something completely different to anywhere else that was happening at that time, and coming with this thing that people in the UK called garage music, which is a combination of house music and the different forms of house music that was coming out of the States, and a little bit of house music that was coming out of different parts of Europe. And what the UK people did, they meshed it all together. They included and incorporated different types of West Indian elements and styles, which is like chatting on the mic.
Yeah.
And they just came out with something called UK Garage. And then once that music started to get into the mainstream charts, the rest is just, as the expression goes, the rest is history, because it just exploded from there.
It did, indeed. It did. I mean, because as you're talking about those earlier sound systems, when that came into the club culture, and it did essentially come from Jamaica, did it not? Right?
Yeah.
When you think about it, right? Yeah. Everything people are doing right now, honestly, I'd say, it is tough. In the city of Toronto, you want to go around and find a good system, right? You definitely got to piece it together yourself. But that's where that comes from. Man, you've seen some serious stuff. We could probably talk about this for like the next couple hours. I'm sure the story. So I'm sure we got to do this again. But man, it's so interesting to hear this, and that's why I wanted to have you down here. So
thank you.
Did you brought some wax in the bag there?
I bought some wax. Yeah, I bought some wax to just spin and just give people a little taste of all the different genres of music that I was fortunate enough and luckily enough, and I have to say blessed enough to actually hear it. And I always tell people, all the stuff that you might hear me playing, I always remind people that there are a ton of people behind me, before me, who helped to shape my musical taste. And whatever I do, I always try and let the next generation of people know that music has always been an evolving thing. And there are always many people who help in this process of evolution as far as music is concerned. So I always remind people, yes, it's me you're hearing, but many of the tracks you're hearing, other people turn me on to those tracks. So it wouldn't really fit my way of thinking and my way of giving back if I didn't every now and again mention there are people before me who've paved the way, and they should be remembered.
Indeed, and I'm just thinking of Paul Trouble Anderson.
Yeah,
last year. I mean,
yes.
he was a. I mean, you see that guy play. I mean, he had a ball up there, and he created energy, and that's why so many people. There's a Facebook page up about him. So, respect, rest in paradise to him.
For sure, Paul was just phenomenal. If you've never actually seen Paul Chapel Anderson spin music, if you see him spin music, and remember back when he was doing it, a lot of DJs wasn't doing it the way Paul was doing it. Paul initially, this is what I said earlier on about how we as DJs get introduced to music and involve ourselves in music. Paul was actually a dancer, so his involvement in music, like myself, was he used to go to various clubs, parties as a dancer, not as a DJ. So through his dancing and his love for music, then he went on to DJ. But then when you saw Paul actually DJ live, you saw the other elements to Paul being introduced by what he did. And he'd like play a song, he's playing a song, everybody's out there dancing. Next minute you see Paul on the dance floor. Which is like the song's playing, and then there's Paul on the dance floor busting this move, and you're there like, where did the DJ go? He's right next to you. He's right there busting a move, and before the track even finishes, Paul will just be back at the turntable,
ready with
mixing in the next track and just
dancing with his fingers,
rinsing it out, and then all of a sudden, 2-3 songs later, he's back on the dance floor. So he had a very unique style, and what he was doing, a lot of people wasn't really doing what he was doing. And I think with him being so artistic, because, you know, we are all artistic when it comes to being a DJ. Yes. So some DJs, they do things and it's like, wow. Mm-hmm. And Paul was one of those wow DJs. So may he definitely rest in peace.
Indeed. I mean, he saw some eras of music. He just blessed. So anyways, I mean... We should have our own Paul Trouble Anderson tribute in Toronto, shouldn't we? I mean,
for sure. There's
a few parties going on over there. Shouts out to Johnny Reckless. He's still doing his thing. Working with him down, and he's still... and Barry Sharp.
Yes, they're still doing their thing, yeah.
They're still doing their thing with LaSalle Gordon, and shouts out to those guys. So anyways, look, we got half an hour here. I mean, geez, we gotta pack in some tunes, but I guess that, you know what that means, we're probably gonna have to have you down on the show again. And,
yeah, sure, I'd love to come down.
Stretch it out and do a proper set. But let's get into a few tunes here and dig out the bag. And you know, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, sir.
I look forward to hearing more stories, man.
Sure. Love to be back and share stories with the listeners.
Definitely. Okay, guys. Well, listen, you're tuned in here. This is International Times, and it's our Saturday monthly special. And so we're going to go and just get into some tunes here. I can start off with a little bit of stuff here, and then ODJ is going to do his thing for half an hour and pull out some cuts. So stay tuned.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Brown, for having me down here. So I'm just going to play some records. ODJ touching down. iLiveRadio.com. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown, for having me down here. Looking forward to coming back and spinning some tunes. I'm going to try in the next half an hour spin as much tunes as I can, reminiscing my days of living in London, England, back in the 80s. And I'm going to try to cover... I've only got half an hour, so I'm going to try to cover different genres of music, and I might even have to cut some of the records. So in advance, please forgive me. So I'm going to start off with this one. And if anybody out there has any soul, you should be able to relate to this.
You got it, you got it, you got it, you got it. I know you got soul. Hey, if you did, you wouldn't be in here. I know you got soul. If you did, you wouldn't be in here. I know you got soul. If you did, you wouldn't shake that thing. Hit me with the beat. Hey, because it makes me sing. I know you got soul. Hey, if you did, you wouldn't be in here. I know you got the feeling, the way you move over there. Hey. Don't let the greenback fool you. I know you don't like the faker. Tighten up your game and shake your money maker. Say yeah, say yeah, say yeah, say yeah. I know you got soul. Hey, if you didn't, the music wouldn't groove you. I know you got the feeling. Hey, if you didn't, the beat wouldn't move you. Don't let nobody stop you from having yourself a ball. Just keep right on dancing, dancing in the hall. See ya, see ya, see ya, see ya, see ya. Fred Preston, won't you blow one time? Hey, Fred Preston, won't you blow one time? Hey. Hey, now the Soul Sisters gonna get down on some funk for the folks, y'all. Check it out. People, can you feel the groove? Come on and let it make you move. The rhythm is a funky beat. It's got to get you on your feet.
I'm tired of working for nothing and being treated like a snob. I'm tired of having to be a maid, and now I want a real, real job. I'm tired of my man giving up his best years, and still he doesn't have nothing. I'd rather drown in my own tears. I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. According to faith, things better change before it's too late. I'm tired of my father being impressed, coming home and raising me saying, what do I have to do to prove my love for you? What do I have to do to prove my love for you? I'll give you my love, I'll give you the best. And if I want to, babe, you know I'll give you the rest. Now tell me what do I have to do to prove my love for
people flying higher than high. Super people, you watch the poor folks die. Super people are with the super smile. I bet you wouldn't live when they got to for a while. Super people don't help no one. Just worried about yourself. Just having big fun. Just having big fun. You're having big fun. People down, you're having big fun. Keep on having fun. Ooh, super people. Oh, what are we gonna do? If you don't give love and respect, then the blame's on you. I'm gonna fight for our equal rights as long as we can. God made everyone a part of this land.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a story. Very first girl I ever loved, she really dogged me around.
Had me ashamed to even raise my hand when I strolled around this town.
One day I found myself.
It appeared very plain to me
that I shouldn't be afraid to look for love, 'cause love sure don't look for me, love. What's on the inside?
What's on the outside? Can't that thing man work out?
So I guess I'll just have to try love again.
At the heights of Rare Groove.
Can't sit back and watch life go by. Got love knocks you down. Don't just lay on the ground.
And then there's no need to even try. You got to pick up your heart, keep stepping.
There's another for you, I'm sure.
Trying to get money to pay a bit, but I just love to be all with you. Yeah.
Just can't give you up. Just can't give you up.
Boogie.
No matter how hard I try, I can't give you up.
Just can't give you up.
Just don't know the reason why. Ooh, I can't give you up.
Just can't give you up.
It's harder and harder, yeah, for me to stay away from you. I love you, I love you. What more can I do? I want it to be all my own. And I thought that I could leave you, but now since I'm all alone, and I know I've got to come back just to please you. You're my baby, and I need you. Oh, ooh, yeah, you're my sweet love, and I want you.
Boogie. Mystic Merlin.
Can't give you up, can't give you up.
Boogie.
Just can't give you up.
That's one of the tracks I used to hear quite often when I used to go to London's Notting Hill Carnival. I was exposed to so much soul, boogie, house, jazz, funk, so much music actually inside of a carnival. Which if you can if you can just imagine that, it's a carnival and you're hearing all these types of music. I'm going to change it slightly and give you the influence that was coming from Jamaica that we called toasting. People call it rapping, but it's chatting on the mic.
Slam bam, jam on, hear them, fashion, me strong, me long, me at the mic stand, say enough in me ring and wear me diamond, and from a little youth I
watch it.
Armana, slam bam, jam on, say in them fashion, me strong, me long, me at the mic stand, say in me ring, me wear me diamond, and from my youth I been a man, me drive over 1 minute club man, but drive balance, I know me the man, me full up of lyrics and education, what the most cheap, most of the man, what the most rover, most Babylon, who love Otogan, most African, who drive road rides on the money man, but they still many things that I don't understand, like to make a million out of a grand. Every 2 years, my business expand, my money grow faster than inflation. Pan me name, me class for me and preach to the God, me no pray to the man and them show me the light, give me wisdom. As the MC, me have many fan and then listen me style for new invention. Dealing with fact and not fiction, them know me no deal with no reproduction. So listen me good, me pan the vision. Come after no for tell everyone, you could be a woman or even a man. There's too much MCs in England. Some of them right, most of them wrong, them making them side of fat in my fashion. That is something that I don't understand. If this world were mine, that would have been banned. Think with my head, right with my hand. Together you call it origination. And it's time me chat, you should hear it from one and everybody else got it at imitation. The conquer dance with an inspiration. Step forward and show your appreciation. Right now, me under deep meditation. Jack give me vibes and inspiration. Whether on the mic or recitation. Watch video more than television. Still me can tell you what's showing on. ITV or BBC One. Yes, Roger Moore, Starring Man. William Khan, what Thomas Cannon. Christopher Reeves, Star Superman. Jonathan Scott, Star Demian. Every half must break a fraction. Times minus and division. 3 times 7 make 21. Minus 14, the left is 7. Divided in 7, the answer is 1. In every minute, there's 60 seconds. Bump everywhere, I'm an Aquarian. Me don't come a dance to reproduction. Me get me sense ya Southampton. Dark is Swede and most African. Gold is Swede, is Colombian. The green is Swede, is German Bazan. Sweet is Swede, come from a
Smiley.
Make I'm in a load up my band. Swap it for money, not swap it for sand. Swimming up.
Smiley culture.
Eat too fast, get into the shan. You take a these are illusion. Cannot breathe with oxygen. Come as a no for cause confusion.
From Jamaica.
Must be the pressure down in Babylon. Anytime me chat have an extension. No fancy make style like reflection. Trace over it if you don't understand. But origination, my attraction. Me have to mention me are the first one for flatter like this. You are the England. A-N-D, you know spell and me chap on a sound and not para band. Drink out a glance, not out a can. Only eat steak, not no big man. 1000 must make 1,000. 10,000 make a million. Million make a billion. But out of a billion, I am one who will fight for the right, not for the wrong. Some are NF, some are close cotton. It's them same one. I fight it can. And the pretend them a politician.
Smiley culture. Rest in peace.
Also, man, live as one, not as a van. Say one for all and all for one.
Let's continue. As I was saying earlier on to Michael, once again, thank you very much for Michael for having me down here. Looking forward to coming back and just continuing to help share the story of our love for music. I spoke about people getting together, doing their own thing and creating something that's not really around. And this is a prime example of everybody getting together. We put all our differences aside because we all know we had lots of differences, lots of arguments here and there as far as DJs is concerned. So we put all that aside. We put our heads together. We get together, get in the studio. We do something actually different. And from a garage, UK garage perspective, this track here was massive.
What's up? Yeah, man, I'm ready, man. I'm ready. I'm ready. Give me the beat. What you saying, Chris? We in this?
Yeah, mate, I'm ready for it, man.
MCs are singing. Definitely.
Where the tune there? Where there?
Where there? I'm in that.
Good rhymes.
Oh boy!
I'm the one with the lyrical flow to make your mind blow. Creed on the mic, how you like? The bigger they come, the harder they fall. My DJ's tunes knocking down the wall. But it's alright, we didn't come to fight. Cause the beat and
what you saying, bruv?
Nah, so don't be lazy. Take your place on a ladder. Moving to the treble and the bass, bit of patter. Into the powerful beat when the drum and the lyrical flow stay sweet. Turning you on every after night. Got you moving with the strokes and a lot. Pole position, quality time. Introducing party people to the rhyme. And if they don't have the energy to move, then the best in the world to get them into the group.
Smooth stepping up to the mic, believe the hype. Never heard a DJ kick a beat tight like this one. To make the crowd keep jumping, while the rhythm and the bass line pumping. Flex, time to get hyper. PSG Creed, the unknown MCM Piper. Wicked on the decks, live and direct, how we get respect.
If you don't know, you better get to know. And rock to the rhythm, better go with the flow. 1, 2, 3, and away we go.
go. I let me head the horns and the whistles then blow. PSG's on the microphone. I listen to the rhythm and I rock it to the bone. All you have to do is move. So get up and move and jump to the groove.
We all have good times.
Doing it again.
Make you feel the vibe. We all have good times.
1, 2, shake that ass.
We all have good times.
Doing it again.
Make you feel the vibe. We all have good times.
Can't help myself, can't believe the way that I feel in my body. I am the MC that everyone calls the one PSG. And when I come in the dance, all the people go mad. House and carriages, the music with the style and pattern. People say we do this and people say we do that. We love the white, the brown and the black. So get a move on, better get a move on. Keep on rocking to the break of dawn. And blow that whistle, better blow that horn. PSG will keep you warm. Jump, move around, better move around. You better.
Good rhymes.
For this one, wicked and wicked and.
In fiction comes a little fact. In life, be ready to attack. Happiness is still a state of mind. So seek and you will surely find. Believe and pray for a better day.
So proud of these guys.
Hey, in our minds and thoughts we hold a lot. Is it a question of who was wrong or right? You gotta follow your heart and choose your own pick. Peace and love is what we bring. You gotta take your time to avoid a spill. You can take years to realize your skill. So don't give up till you reach your goal. Cause half a story never gets told. The bigger they come, the harder they fall. The DJs choose that and
Well, I'm the
roll.
capital UN, the KNO, the WN, that's me. So give me the microphone so I can step into the party. The unknown MC's gonna flex for the people in the crowd. Say it loud, the white, the black, unite and we feel proud, we uplift. We got the gift of the game, where music hits and you feel no pain.
All of the people around the back, better get up and move and jump to
rhythm.
What around, better get up and move and jump to this. You know this one wicked and this one Chris. Goes like that and goes like this. PSG is on the mic, and me love it like this, and that's the way me love it like. Oh boy.
We all have
Love it. You can hear the influences of the Caribbean. Man chat pon mic.
1, 2, we get
More garage music. UK garage. An absolutely massive monster of a track. So proud of Wookie.
Constant
MJ Cole. The music, the culture. .5 minutes left. Kush is next. Stay right there. The UK vibe that took the city. Just loving it. Inspired by so many people. Step in. Big shout out to Dr. No. Shout out to Mallet X.